Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Sienna from Dragon Trail International. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you to our guest speakers also for joining today for today's webinar, which will be an in-depth discussion of destination marketing for Chinese tourism recovery in 2023. The format of today's webinar is going to be a little bit different from our normal webinars. I'm going to be starting off with a brief recap of the latest news and developments for Chinese international travel, but this will just take a few minutes. And then most of our session will be conducted as a panel discussion featuring today's guest speakers from the tourism boards of South Africa, Switzerland, and Thailand. I'm hoping to cover quite a few topics and questions with our panelists, but then also to finish up in time to leave around 10 minutes for you, the audience, to ask your own questions. You can send in questions at any point during the webinar using the Q&A button on your Zoom control panel, and then we will have a look at those at the end of the session. Another thing to note is that I will be sending out the presentation slides from the beginning of today's webinar, as well as a recording of the full session later today, so you will have all of those materials for future reference. Before I get started, a very quick introduction to Dragon Trail International for any of you who might not know us. We are a marketing solutions company headquartered in China, and since the company's founding in 2009, we've focused on marketing for Chinese outbound tourism, working with destinations, airlines, hotels, cruise lines, attractions, and other tourism businesses to help them reach Chinese consumers and the Chinese travel trade. Our work includes B2B and B2C digital marketing and content creation, virtual, hybrid, and offline events, research and strategy consulting, and market representation services. You can find more information about our services, case studies of our work, and lots of free resources on trends in Chinese outbound travel and digital marketing on our website, www.dragontrail.com. So with that background, let's start off with a quick recap on the latest Chinese travel news. The first piece of news, which is very fresh, it's from less than 24 hours ago, actually maybe around 12 hours ago. It's not related to outbound Chinese tourism, but it is probably relevant to some of you who are listening. So starting from tomorrow, Chinese visa centers around the world will now be accepting applications for any kind of visa to go to China, including tourism visas. And people who previously had, let's say, 10-year visas that were issued before the end of March 2020. Those visas previously, their validity had been suspended, but if they haven't expired yet, starting from tomorrow, they will be valid again to enter China for any reason until they expire. And then there are also a number of visa-free travel arrangements that will go into effect once again starting from tomorrow. Now moving back to outbound tourism, which will really be the focus of today's webinar. When China reopened its borders on the 8th of January, Chinese citizens could travel for any purpose, including leisure, to any country in the world, but this could only be as FITs. And there was still a ban in place on travel agents and tour operators selling group tours or package travel that included a minimum of a flight and a hotel booking together. This ban, which had been in place since January 2020, was finally lifted on the 6th of February. And however, that was a pilot scheme to bring back the sale of group and package travel, and it started with a list of only 20 countries in regions all around the world. And as you can see from the list here, South Africa, Switzerland, and Thailand, the three countries that we'll be really discussing today, were all on that list. Then last Friday, the Ministry of Culture and Tourism announced a second set of countries to which the sale of group travel and package travel will be allowed. And you can see the list here. There are countries all around the world. There are quite a few in Africa and Europe. And the sale of group and package tours will be allowed from tomorrow. This month, the policy about COVID testing for anyone entering China has started to change as well. So although travelers from any country in the world will still need to do a COVID test within 48 hours of travel to China, now for 17 countries, they only need to do an antigen test, so the kind of test you take yourself rather than a PCR. And that list of 17 countries is basically the same as the original list of countries for group and package travel. And again, it includes South Africa, Switzerland, and Thailand. On the other side of things, many countries around the world started in January to require travelers from China to take COVID tests before arrival. And now gradually this is being phased out all around the world. We see India, South Korea, Europe, Japan, the US, and Australia all ending their testing requirements in the last month. And now the list of countries that still require those tests is getting very small. It includes the UK, Canada, and Israel. And on the most extreme end of things, there's Morocco, which still has a ban in place on travelers from China. But generally speaking, it is getting increasingly easy for Chinese travelers both to leave the country and to return home. Now, finally, let's look at overall numbers for mainland China border crossings in 2023 so far. Over the Chinese New Year period, outbound trips were up by almost 118% compared to 2022, although border crossings still only reached around 23% of 2019's levels. Then on the 6th of February, which was the day that group and package tours resumed and the border with Hong Kong normalized, border crossings were up to 36.6% of pre-pandemic levels. And then finally, looking at the first 2 months since China has reopened for international travel, there have been nearly 40 million border crossings, which is more than doubled from last year. And we do expect to see increased international travel from China this year and to China as flight capacity grows, prices start to come down, and policies continue to ease. So now it is my great honor to welcome today's special guests to share their insights. Joining us from South African Tourism is Hub Head for Asia Pacific, Mansoor Mohamed. I don't know if everyone wants to say hello when I introduce you. Sorry, you're on mute.
Let me unmute. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you again. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Next, the Director of Greater China for Switzerland Tourism, we have Daniela Chiani.
Hello, everybody. Happy morning or evening.
And last but not least, the Director of the Tourism Authority of Thailand's Chengdu office is Rung, Kanjanaviroj.
Hi, good afternoon from China.
So we're really pleased to have speakers from such a diverse list of global regions to help us put together a full picture of Chinese tourism recovery throughout the world in 2023. So thank you very much, all three of you, for joining us today. So I've got quite a few questions. I want to start off with just some basics and probably start with Rung, because I know Thailand has been the biggest recipient of Chinese tourists so far. So how would you say recovery is going so far? And are there any numbers that you can share?
Yeah, thank you very much. Being the first one is very excited. But anyhow, actually, as you have already mentioned before about the number of Chinese tourists going out of the countries, will be only in January, February, March, this will be around like 40 million. Same in Thailand. Actually, we have already witnessed a kind of a double number of February, March, and comparing even with January. Actually, right now for the 3 months until the 7th of March, as we have the latest number, we have actually already around 300,000 Chinese arriving to Thailand actually. So I would say in 2019 we have Chinese arriving around like 11 million. So in this year we would expecting around like 5 million actually, like recovery maybe about like 50% or around that. But now we are only 3 months, we have already, even we could say only 2 months or 1 month, we have already 300,000. So it's very fast actually recovery for us.
Okay. What would maybe Daniela next? I imagine that the situation is maybe a little bit different in a long haul destination that is not quite so well connected by air as Thailand.
Yeah, absolutely. We were a little bit jealous to see all the Chinese tourists going to beautiful Thailand. But that being said, actually, the destination Switzerland had a very strong recovery last year already, like many of our European peers. We actually finished the year with 96.7% of the 2019 level globally, without the return of Greater China. So actually, we had a fantastic summer, especially. For the return of the Chinese guests, we're of course very happy to see the first groups, the first individuals, the first business travelers returning to Switzerland. But we are also rather on the conservative side. We expect around 40 to 45% from the Greater China market until the end of 2023. As you mentioned, and we will talk about it probably later, because of flight capacity and also because, of course, travelers from China need a Schengen visa to go to Switzerland.
Mansoor, what is the experience in South Africa so far for tourism recovery in the first couple of months?
Yeah, so China is just open now, so it's difficult to say what the recovery is from China. But overall, globally, we've had some good recovery from our traditional markets in the US, the UK, and Europe. Some countries over there are quite strong. So we're well on our way to recovery since last year already. With regard to China, I think if I had to guess, our annual arrivals was about close to 100,000 from China just before the pandemic, which amounts to just plus minus 8,000 people from China a month. So we think we're going to reach that monthly level by July to August of this year. This is a gut feel we have, and the reason why we think so is because of two major events that's happening in South Africa. The first in May is the World Table Tennis Championships. The ping pong championship, and they've got a great following. So we hope we can convert some of those people to come to South Africa and enjoy the beautiful city of Durban and watch table tennis. And then a few months later, you may be aware that South Africa is actually the host for the BRICS Summit. And I do recall very clearly about 5 years ago when we hosted it in 2018, that month they were here, our figures were up about 20% of the normal monthly rate. So we expect quite a substantial number to take us above the 8,000 number per month. And we'll see what happens after that.
Oh, that's great to hear that those events will really help. I've actually seen, I think it was last week, Cathay Pacific put on Weibo about how they were flying the Chinese and the Hong Kong SAR's men's table tennis teams around. So we can see that there is a lot of attention for that sport. So moving on to the next question. Obviously, it's been 3 years since we really had a lot of Chinese outbound tourism, and the market may have shifted a little bit in that time. Daniela, I'd like to start with you for this one. Thinking about your marketing to China right now, what traveler profiles and segments are you targeting? And is this different from maybe 3 years ago?
I see Switzerland is a rather small country. It's a small tourism destination, and yet the Chinese travelers are one of the most important traveler segments for us. So we had around 1.8 million overnights before the pandemic. Even before the pandemic, we actually focused on a segmentation in the market, simply because we cannot target everyone. This is a huge, enormous source market. So we focused on, especially on nature lovers and outdoor enthusiasts. So the hikers, the bikers, the leisurely hikers. And we also focused before the pandemic on culture travelers, so people who are interested in museums, in classical music, as well as, of course, in the winter sports. This is a huge topic, especially after the Beijing Olympics. So we hope this year that we can catch all the people in China who started skiing or snowboarding and bring them to Switzerland. And I think the biggest change here is that, besides the community marketing that we have done before, is that we will focus even more on the individual traveler as well as the conscious traveler with our sustainability topic.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there is a big opportunity for winter sports. So that is a very good one for Switzerland. Rung, about Thailand, obviously it's such a popular destination for Chinese tourists. And so how do you kind of approach market segmentation or think about which traveler profile you're aiming to attract the most?
Actually, I think before the pandemic, the most of Chinese travelers going to Thailand are groups travelers, and there were kind of a big group traveling to Thailand from many places, including also they're bringing kind of a charter flights, also incentive kind of group. But for us, like even before the pandemic, we have been starting shifting the market to be more quality and to be more like segmented. And the market that we have been started is like for the wellness and health and wellness. Actually, when we have done before, like when we first begin with this market group, we haven't got any kind of partner. And then during this, after we have continued doing it, and during the pandemic, we have more partner, we have more representative of the hospitals, we have more kind of travel agents who can arrange the tour for the health and wellness tour. So I think in this kind of segmentation, we would continue from before the pandemic and then continue after the pandemic as well. And I think this market is also like Thailand is more popular and every day, like more knowledge, being well known in terms of kind of some kind of health treatment. And also we have also like some supporting like the tourist attractions and the surrounded area that they can support even after or during the treatment. And another group will be focused for this year. It will be the youth travelers, also the students as well. So because actually Thailand is very close to China and we are not so expensive. Like if you're going to travel to study abroad, like in the European countries or in America, so the price is more less. But actually in the surrounding area, we have a kind of standard schools, international school also. And so that's very be easy for them to go. During the pandemic, actually, this market is only the market we can do, and it's growing a lot. And we got lots of school exchange, and we got also the university kind of programs that Chinese students go and then took it as a bachelor degrees or a diploma degree as well. Then that could be this both two big focus, and others is will be the sports and also the experience for the like FIT and semi-FIT group. That's kind of things we will offer, because actually Thailand is kind of more variety of products and services that we can offer. So there will be many aspects that we can do.
When you say sports, do you mean water sports?
Water sports. like water sports, and we also are doing the runners, kind of marathon runners. We also have the events, lots of events. Actually, marathon is also not popular only in China, but also in Thailand. So in Thailand, we have many kind of international marathon sport events. So that's also, we also introduced to China market.
Oh, thank you. So Mansoor, I imagine that you're targeting the table tennis enthusiast market in 2023, but apart from that, kind of what market profiles are you looking at specifically?
Yeah, so our main target audiences are luxury travelers. You know, it's a long haul destination. People want to travel for 10, 15 days at most, and they pay top dollar to go to a destination like South Africa because it's also a nice luxury destination. But it's not just luxury, it's also the millennials that are increasingly looking at going through China, post-90s people, post-20s. FIT and business travel is still very strong. And there's a new focus now. So there's no like significantly new segment, but those existing travelers are now looking for sustainability, cultural diversity, more human-centered experiences, because it's very important. You know, we just launched a global campaign called Live Again. So people after the pandemic want to live again. They want to live in nature and they want to live in public open spaces. So we're also seeing there's a lot of trending towards the smaller group, like 2 parents, a small kid, and the grandparents, maybe 5 people, and a tailor-made high-end. The days of 20 to 50 plus people in a bus going from China to the airport and then going on an airplane, we don't see a lot of that coming through. In fact, very few. I must say we are quite encouraged by the demand that's coming through at the moment, because right now we're sitting with our visa office not able to cope with the number of applications coming through. And we've got a big group going on the first flight out from Beijing on Air China flight, I think it's 867, going to South Africa on 28 March, you know, so they're starting again on 26 March. So we are very optimistic. We see very strong growth, but our traditional segmentation still very much intact, with a new emphasis on sustainability, cultural diversity, and human-centered experiences.
Thank you. I guess another question about segmentation and markets I wanted to ask about is geographic markets in China. Because I know originally when people focused on the Chinese market, it was really just those core first-tier cities. Obviously, the Tourism Authority of Thailand is focusing very much on smaller cities, in the fact that Chengdu has its own office, its own social media channels. So Rung, could you tell us, does Thailand have a different strategy for Chengdu and the Sichuan area?
Actually, in our offices, we are covering major cities and also the second-tier cities. Like the major cities for our responsibility is Sichuan and Chongqing. These are the 2 provinces that will be the big generating the market. But for the second tier, like Shanxi and Shanxi or Ningxia or Gansu is also our like a second tier focus. For the big market like Chongqing and Chengdu, maybe we can do more on the FIT, more on the segmentation, very focusing. But for the second tier cities, we still are starting from creating the awareness of Thailand, make them understand about Thailand. They know about the products of Thailand. Actually, they know already, but not everything. They may know only Bangkok, they may know only Pattaya, but it's our responsibility to introduce more destination, especially the destination that have the direct flights. Actually, from even the city from Lanzhou or the city like Chiani, there are many direct flights. Right now, like resuming the direct flights, going to other cities apart from Bangkok, like Phuket or Chiang Mai, something like that. So in that kind of cities, we can introduce more in-depth, like more experiences, not only like the city or major activities, but actually we can do something more culture, more experience exchanging, kind of thing like that. So that will be our plan to do for the second tier markets.
That's very interesting. Mansoor, what about for South Africa? Are you branching away from the core first tier cities as well?
Oh, I wouldn't say we're branching away. I think our core markets will always be Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, as what we call our encatchment area. But increasingly, over the last 8 weeks or so, we found ourselves in cities like Shenzhen, which is a big IT capital. We've been to Chengdu. We did an activation in Shanghai. Just in 2 days' time, I'll be going back to Chengdu and then to Xi'an. So there's a lot of opportunity in those second tier cities, we believe. We've seen a lot of interest coming out of there. And what we're doing is two things: demand generation with social media and outdoor, as well as capacitating all those agents who are very keen to explore faraway places like South Africa and especially Africa.
Thank you. And then, sorry, I'll come to Daniela last. What does your strategy look like in terms of targeting different geographic markets?
I think it's quite similar to Thailand and South Africa. I think, well, for us, what has been the case in the past is that 2/3 of our guests from China actually come from the major 3 cities as well. And this simply has to do with the sheer size of the cities, but also with accessibility. Direct flights is a huge factor, access to visa centers. So this is really where we concentrate most of our activities. However, we have been active in Tier 2 cities in the past, and I think it's really worth it, as famously China is adding millions of households in the middle income over the course of the years. That, of course, the society is very dynamic. Interest for international travel is rising, even in the Tier 3 cities. So this is a hugely interesting market for us. I think in the first years of the recovery, we'll concentrate on our 5 top cities. So Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Taipei, and Hong Kong in the Greater China area. And then the global strategy from Switzerland Tourism is rather having like antenna offices. So for example, last year we opened an office antenna in the Philippines. That means we are much more agile and can react more swiftly to kind of these emerging hubs and destinations or source markets. So this could be a strategy for China, and we see how it develops and where the demand rises, that we kind of open up little antennas in the future.
Can I ask you, Rung has talked about some of the direct flights, even from Lanzhou, and Mansoor, you said that there's direct flights starting to South Africa from the 26th of March. What about Switzerland? Is there direct connectivity restarted yet?
Yes, Swiss is back in China since last Sunday or the previous Sunday, 3 times a week to Shanghai, Zurich. And then we have also Air China returning, which we're very happy about, Beijing, Geneva. And we have 5 times a week flights from Hong Kong to Zurich directly, and in the summer 6 times a week. So that's an excellent connection from Guangzhou. And then, of course, Switzerland is very well connected to France, to Germany, to Italy, to Austria. So there are many, many options to have fork flights as well, of course, to our destinations.
Good. It's nice to see those flights coming back. I think everyone is very happy to see that.
Definitely.
So actually, I'd like to continue with you, Daniela, and talk a little bit about social media marketing for B2C, because I know Switzerland is very strong, especially on Weibo. We see in the weekly rankings that Dragon Trail does that Switzerland is usually at the top there. What I wanted to ask about, apart from Weibo, what other social media channels you use for B2C Chinese tourism marketing, and also if you've been trying out any different strategies over the last few years that you're very happy with.
Yeah, I think all the credit goes to the team here in our offices in China. who have been active on these channels very early and are very eager to experiment. I mean, the Chinese social media landscape is extremely dynamic and extremely exciting as well. So we kind of took the opportunity of the last years of the pandemic, as many other tourism offices as well, to kind of experiment a little bit. We're almost present, I think, on all major relevant platforms. We have had projects on Bilibili, we had projects on Douyin, of course. Majorly, I would say, Xiaohongshu. Last year, we opened our channel there, and it's been a huge success. Of course, it's a lifestyle, travel, a bit upper scale platform, which is excellent for Switzerland. And we had a really fantastic autumn campaign. It was a lot of fun. And then also I'm sitting here in my studio. It's partly my office, partly our live streaming studio. So we set it up during the pandemic, and we did some chibo, so a fondue making, fondue eating, and live streaming, which was a lot of fun to experiment with. So I think the important thing in the Chinese market is to kind of stay agile and make sure that you are on top of these trends, but at the same time not get lost on all these new platforms and social trends that emerge, because otherwise it's just impossible to do for the small tourist offices that we are.
I'll have to check out the Xiaohongshu account. Look forward to seeing that. Rung, speaking from the Tourism Authority of Thailand's Chengdu office, I also see you very high on the WeChat Weibo rankings regularly. Can you talk about your social media strategy kind of over the last 3 years and for recovery, and anything new you're doing there that you're pleased with?
Thank you. Actually, I have to say, like, I just arrived China last month. So during the last 3 years, I have to ask from my team, and they're explaining a lot on the social media. And actually, I could not see really myself, but actually I could listen from them, like how success the WeChat and the Weibo they have been doing. Actually, they use these two for keep in touch with the consumer and also the trade partner during these 3 years, and doing not only giving the information, they are exchanging also the information, collecting the information from them as well. And on this kind of platform, I think the team are also exploring more on the live streaming. And now we have done live streaming not only by ourselves, but also we did through the kind of media partners or for the KOL partners, kind of thing like that. So that kind of things can help selling the products. We can see the result of like pre-sale products even during the pandemic time. So that could be the best, one of the best channel that we could explore more. And also I heard from like the trade partner as well, like they are trying to invest on the Douyin or even Xiaohongshu a lot, and it will be the trend, and we also need to catch up that trend.
And then Mansoor, over to you. Can you tell us about South Africa's social media strategy?
Yeah, so we certainly follow the trend of being on all major platforms like Weibo, WeChat, Bilibili, Douyin, and a few others. So we've got official accounts and some. We've also expanded quite, I wouldn't say aggressively, but more so than before on the WeChat video channels, which is another platform. What we've done was during the pandemic, we've taken those channels and we've amplified our presence on there through, for example, a live sunset safari, you know, broadcasting live out of a game park in South Africa, and having interaction with our audience in China directly with a game ranger in some cases, so they could ask questions about how animals are moving live in the live stream. Then also what we've done was we launched what we call a smart content portal. Now, that is, in simple terms, if you live in China, you'll know what a mini program is. It's on the WeChat platform again. And that is basically a very much B2B focused, heavy resource portal where trade can actually access very important information about the itineraries, you know, so and other information about the destination. So that's where we focused on. We did a few things on cinema outdoor, which is not quite your digital social media, but is sort of closely connected to that. Yeah, so that's more or less what we try to do. But we're going to ramp up quite a bit over the next couple of years as we target our growth targets. Yeah.
Now I'll stay with you, Mansoor, and talk a little bit about live streaming, because I know that is something that you've done for B2B, and was wondering if you could tell us about what South Africa is doing for B2B and kind of what you've done over the last 3 years and then more recently as well.
Yeah, so over the last 3 years, we've done a lot of live streaming out of our online roadshow, and you may be familiar with it, Sienna. We used Dragon Trail extensively to build the online roadshow platform. And then in addition to that, we use your same systems to actually do the live streaming, where we had a Chinese KOL talk about his experiences. And by the way, for those who's not in China, KOL is basically another term for influencer. It's key opinion leader. So we had that, a few of those events, and that was aimed at the mass Chinese audience. And that was also a lot of our B2B partners in South Africa, our product and suppliers, who also came on board to help out with that. More recently, I was pleasantly surprised when we went to Dali about 2 weeks ago in Kunming province, which is the far west of China. Not far west, but close to Tibet and those areas. And it's a bit of a hippie town. We established a little museum there, and on the day we had so many KOLs together with an anchor KOL, Roy and Sue, and we generated about 250,000, in excess of 250,000 live views for our activation there, where we launched a mini South African museum. And that was very well received, and we're still getting positive comments from that. And then a few days later, I found myself in a studio in Beijing on another platform, also generating a similar amount of views. So to me, the whole live streaming thing is a very exciting space to be in, because I see there's some KOLs here with massive amounts of followers. And if one can use them, blend them into the live stream and showcase your destination, it can really generate a lot of awareness and positivity about the destination.
Thank you. One point that a few of you have brought up that I think is quite interesting is using social media and B2C marketing, not just to put content out there, but to get the interaction and the feedback from the audience as well, that it's a good way of collecting information. Or for instance, if you're doing a live stream from a safari and you see the kinds of questions that people are asking, that can give you some good ideas about, you know, what people really want to know and what they're interested in. So that's a great thing about social media, is that ability to have a back and forth interaction. Moving on to talk more about B2B marketing. Daniela, I was very impressed during the pandemic that even though, you know, officially China was closed for international travel, nobody was going anywhere, but on my LinkedIn and on WeChat moments, I was always seeing Chinese travel agents traveling around Switzerland during this time. So can you tell us about kind of what you were doing during the pandemic era, and then kind of what you're doing now with B2B marketing?
Yeah, well, I guess a lot of big companies are also present in Europe. And I mean, there's a huge Chinese diaspora also in Europe, which we benefited from. So when I was in Switzerland, I just arrived here in August. And when I was in Switzerland in the mountains, I would always hear Chinese. And obviously I would ask people, where are you from? And I heard everything from France to San Diego to Chinese who live in Switzerland, or of course other Chinese speaking countries like Singapore. So yeah, we had a huge presence, and then the media was staying longer We had the advantage of some people staying for 2 months, traveling in Europe. Of course, it's very convenient. We have tried very hard. And of course, it's been a challenging time for the travel trade here, but also for the tourism offices. We have tried to kind of, with our Dream Now, Travel Later slogan, to keep kind of the brand awareness high, keep the message of Switzerland top of mind of the people. On the travel trade side, it was a bit more difficult because, of course, it was a kind of a delicate time and you couldn't talk about business clearly if travel is not possible. So we kind of made sure that we stay in touch with the network, that we do online webinars, that we do kind of networking receptions if possible. And most importantly now, we were really trying hard to be first movers in the market. And I think we succeeded at that. We had in Beijing our first B2B event on the 4th of January, so basically the first day in 2023. So we were also a little bit lucky with our timing for the opening. And very importantly now in April, we'll have our Switzerland travel experience. This is our major B2B event where we will invite buyers from all over the Greater China market to Hong Kong for 3 days. And we will have Swiss partners coming in for the first time after 3 years to meet in person again, because that's really what we noticed, that it's, digital at the end of the day, it cannot really replace this business that is so much about talking to each other face to face, about this culture also really enjoys and staying in touch and meeting each other physically. So we are extremely excited for that.
Sounds very busy and exciting.
It is, but it's good. We're happy to be busy again.
Yeah, I think everybody is. Rung, how important is the B2B strategy for your office? And kind of what are you doing now to work with Chinese travel agents and tour operators?
Actually, first of all, we have to know that the flight resuming is the most important thing at this moment, because if no flight, no access. And actually, how to maintain the flights, also we need to work closely with the travel agents to bring out the tourists, and also trying very hard to bring in more the tourists as well. Actually, during the pandemic time, we stay in touch with them. Like we do something similar to Switzerland, like the networking reception, and we stay close, exchanging information, seeking their needs, updating the products actually with them regularly. They also help, we also trying to develop a kind of activities as much as we can, whatever way that allowed to do, like for the pre-sales, kind of the pre-sales products, kind of thing like that. So hotels or even the tailor-made packages. We also are having our own platform from our head office. They organize a kind of a virtual mart, like Thailand tourism virtual mart. So that will have our own platform, so that the private sectors from Thailand also can see the partners in China. Actually, on after the 8th of January, we have already when China relaxed also the rules and regulations. So we organized the roadshow actually already on the 22nd of February. That's our first roadshow after three years. And we have already organized in 3 cities, in Shanghai, in Chengdu, and also in Guangzhou, which are these 3 markets, these 3 cities having more resuming flights than others. And actually, right now, what we are planning, so we're planning to have them, trying to help them to training more on the frontline travel agents to sell their products. Because actually, after we have already discussed with them, we know that the frontline agent maybe now need to be more trained to know about, to update about the information of the products. We also need to update the information of the product as well to offer to them, to make the new product designs, and also even to understand the situation also in Thailand right now. So that will help them to sell the products. So this kind of things we are in touch already with the partner in the market.
Seems like all three of you jumped right in terms of having offline events, and quite interesting offline events in different cities. So that is very good to hear. I do want to make sure that we have an opportunity for the audience to ask some questions, but I have kind of, well, it's two questions in one to ask each of you, and maybe we could start with you, Rung, as what, on one hand, what do you see as the biggest challenge for Thailand in terms of the recovery of the Chinese market in 2023? But on the other hand, more positively speaking, what do you think is most attractive about Thailand for Chinese tourists this year?
Actually, we are talking about the positive first. Actually, before the challenges, I think Thailand is already, we are close to China. Actually, what we always say, like Thailand and China, we are the same family. So we are already close. We are familiar with each other. So it's very easy to Chinese people to go to Thailand, and they can think of Thailand as the first hand when we are talking, like thinking of traveling. So Thailand is the most easiest one to travel. And after 3 years, this is like a kind of release, and they would like to go out. That will be the opportunity for us. And Thailand also, like, if talking about the area that I actually covering, I think Thailand, like nature, the sun and the sea will help, like the most attractive the products that can that can facilitate to the tourists in this area. They are looking for the sea, they're looking for the sun, looking for the sand. And actually the most, strongest point of Thailand would be the Thai hospitality. So this kind of thing can combine and we can offer to the tourists. And that will be no doubt, I think that's from many years ago, that will be the strongest point of Thailand. And actually the challenges like now that we are facing from this after the pandemic time, because actually during the 3 years, so we have to admit that there were like kind of companies like the DMC or even the hotels or even the staff working in the industry disappear. So we may have, I don't know whether in like other countries have facing the same problems, but we also have a shortage of the staff, and we also have to like restarting again. Actually, during the 3 years time, we receiving the tourists from other countries like in the European countries or even in the US, which is coming to Thailand as the FIT. They come and travel by themselves. So, and in the small amount of the people, it means that the limited resources that we have during the period of time will be able to cater all of them. And this period of time, we have also the wave from the European market, from the US market, and also from China. So now we also restarting, and we have to run around to trying to build up the things and to facilitate all the tourists. Because I think the challenges of us a bit more is more many, also the hospitalities and the services that we could offer to them will not be as efficient as before because of the shortage of the staff. And I just afraid of their satisfaction. Because for us, like as a National Tourist Office, we also expecting the people traveling to our countries and come back with happiness, not like the sadness. No. So that's a kind of what we are like worrying.
Thank you. Daniela, you mentioned about how Switzerland is almost back up to pre-pandemic tourism without the Chinese market, just looking at other markets last summer. But is there also a problem in terms of service staff and capability that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in years in Switzerland, which is fantastic with 2.2%. But at the same time, we really do lack resources, capacity. I think this will normalize a little bit because we had a huge revenge tourism, of course, last summer. Everybody was coming back. We had a huge influx of Americans, United States, India, the Koreans were coming back, Southeast Asia were coming back strong. So it was a fantastic summer, and I don't think this will keep on going on like this. But we see already that like the hotels for the summer season are already quite booked. And we, of course, in Greater China are a little bit late to the party. So this is one of our challenges. And then on the other hand, flight capacity, we expect it to be around 55% in summer only, which of course is still half. And the prices within are still higher than, of course, before the pandemic. And last but not least, we are a visa country for Chinese travelers. Here, I have to say, we are working very closely with the authorities, and they're doing a fantastic job. Switzerland was, of course, one of the first countries where it was possible to travel again, because we were also on the group list, which meant that many people came to the Swiss visa centers for their good services, for their Schengen visa. And yeah, it's just, it takes a little bit more time than it did before the pandemic, because we need to rehire people, rehire visa officers also from Switzerland back to China. And we expect this all will take a little bit of time, and it will really start resuming only after the summer season for the autumn and the winter season this year. And then I just want to take the opportunity also for the positive note. I really think that I'm convinced that Switzerland is a perfect post-pandemic destination, because we are a nature destination like Thailand, like South Africa, but we are really famous for our serenity, for our cleanliness, for kind of winding down. And what I see here during my half year that I was in Beijing, the trend of Chinese travelers of going and seeking out the great outdoors, being active, want to go outside, and at the same time be comfortable and safe. I feel we offer all of that. And yeah, I really hope that this trend also manifests kind of to the long haul outbound travel from Chinese.
Thank you so much. Mansoor, you also mentioned about visa services, and that there were, queues of Chinese travelers hoping to travel to South Africa, and that is a good thing that you can see the demand, but you also need some time to get through all the visa applications. Would you say that is one of the major challenges that you're facing this year?
It's one of the major challenges, and lucky for, I think, Switzerland and Thailand, they don't have any issues with visas, because I know we can have free travel to both those countries. I do recall the last time I visited those countries. So in no particular order, we've got the visa issue, which is being sorted out. We've got distance, the average distance is about 20 hours. In terms of flight time from anywhere in China with a layover in either Singapore, Middle East, or Ethiopia. So we're looking at just over 20 hours. And another challenge that we have, and it's well known, it's no use hiding it away, is what I would like to believe is misconceptions about safety and security. And now safety is more broadly expanded into health safety from a pandemic point of view. So South Africa is one of the safest countries from a visitor perspective. I always remind people, you have a safe experience in South Africa just as you would have in New York or in London or most streets in Europe. In fact, sometimes even safer in South Africa, because the visitor spaces are quite secure and very safe, and it's always well organized. So that is our three, or those are our three biggest challenges. And the big opportunities are to resolve those and use catalytic events, like we've just had a Formula E motorsport event a couple of weeks ago in Cape Town, in fact, just last weekend. Sorry, 2 weeks ago. Then we've got other sporting events and other things happening in South Africa. We're also doing some strategic stuff with China being our biggest trading partner in Africa. Firstly, China is our biggest trading partner, but in Africa, South Africa is China's biggest trading partner. So there's a lot of other things that we're doing in terms of cultural exchange. It's not just purely focused on visitor arrivals, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done on ensuring that we have a cultural exchange that people can get to know each other better. So lots of opportunity as we're dealing with our challenges.
Thank you. Let's see. I know we've got a few questions in from the audience, and we have a few. I'm just having a look at them now. So I don't know. Can you see the questions, the three of you?
I can see it, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I can attempt to do the second question. Has the pandemic facilitated a change from a physical trade promotion in short versus more virtual? I think virtual is here to stay, and it's going to be supplementing our physical spaces that we're going to recreate now. I see there's a lot of demand coming. Yeah, so it's going to be a combination and hybrid. Already everybody's thinking. People I've spoken to are looking at doing both.
I can maybe add on to that. I don't think it replaces the physical. As somebody who started a new job from far away, I can tell you that it makes a whole difference if you meet the people in person. And I think tourism is about meeting. So while I agree with you, Mansoor, that it can kind of be an extension and definitely super important to keep up the digital space, I think still it's really important to come to the market and have a feel for the market.
Actually, I also agree with both of them. Actually, the virtual or the online could not be replaced the on-site. Actually, tourism industry is like the touch, like a personal touch industry. So it's creating from the trust of the sellers and also the buyers. No matter the sellers will be the B business or the like the consumer or business, no matter it will be B2B or B2C actually. So I can see the atmosphere change when we have the online events and also the on-site events, and the people more like on-site event, and they're requesting more actually.
I can actually maybe take up Maria Rosa's question, because we've been in the same boat as European destination. And actually we are super happy that Italy
is now just say, sorry, the question, because I'm not sure the audience can all see the questions. So the question is about the lead time for booking groups in China, if it will get longer or shorter. I think that's a good question to ask everyone. And then she also wants to know when the second wave countries, so the new list of additional 40 countries added to the group and package travel list, when will they start to benefit from the arrival of groups from China?
Yeah, so for us actually, it's fantastic that Italy is on the list as well, because a lot of people are combining, of course, Switzerland and Italy. And our experience for Switzerland was that immediately the demand spiked up. So the travel agents were really, basically they had their itineraries ready the day it was announced. So you can expect the demand to spike up swiftly, but also prepare for like a huge amount of questions for the visa requests. And especially on the ADS group level. So our experience was that not all of the ADS approved tour operators have their yellow card yet, because many of them expired during the pandemic. So this all takes a little bit of time. So it's important to kind of talk to your partners here on location and make sure that they are aware of the longer lead times. Yeah.
Great. Is there anything that that Rung or Mansoor would like to add about kind of lead times for booking groups that you've noticed so far?
I can just respond anecdotally because I don't have the actual detailed figures. So February 6th, it was announced that group tours would be allowed from China. We're now sitting on 14 March. And while I was talking during this webinar for the last hour, I've had like 3 queries of groups of between 15 and 20 people, not groups traveling in the same group, but people processing their visas. So I've got a very good anecdotal insight into what's happening. You know, I can see the numbers increasing with our visa officers stamping these visas into people's passports. So I think the lead times are shortening from what I've experienced before, but I don't have the actual data. We've not looked at any Sky Scanner or future data, you know, that other service providers would normally give us. But anecdotally, I think the lead times are getting shorter.
Okay. I think in terms of flight bookings and things during the pandemic, we saw that lead times were getting really short. But that's maybe a little bit because of uncertainty, where people were waiting for the last minute to know that they could travel somewhere because of changing travel restrictions. So now it might not be quite so last minute. But again, right now, maybe people are waiting for their visas, and then as soon as they get that, they can go ahead with the travel. We have some questions that are specifically for you, Rung. I don't know if you've been able to read them, but it's questions about Chinese tourists' top pick for destinations in Thailand, and if you've noticed any new destinations that are standing out now or any changes in destination preference.
If you are actually talking about 2 months or 3 months from in this year, actually we couldn't see any changes much, but we could say like the top pick destination will be the destination that you have direct flight. This is will be what we have seen right now. For example, like Phuket, we have actually we have the tourists going to Phuket more than tourists going to Bangkok, because now we have more flights actually going to Phuket. We also having the beach destination will be picked more than other destination actually in this moment. Actually, last 2 weeks, we just have the direct flight going to Samui, and it's like going first flight with 100% cabin capacity. So it's like full flights. So more actually still, if you say like talking about that kind of destination, so beach destination will be still top pick, and afterward will be the major destination, actually like Bangkok or Chiang Mai, which is the flights, direct flights facilitated. But for us, actually, what we are trying to do is like we are using a kind of the destination which have direct flight as the hub, and we are trying to promoting more around the destination. Like for example, if you're going to Phuket, you're going also to other places like Phang Nga, or you're going to Krabi, and even you can go to Surat Thani, a kind of thing like that. So we do kind of a cluster of destination, so that I think there would not be any kind of missed opportunities for the second tier cities to be promoted in the Chinese market. Actually, Thailand also cannot be accessed only from the air, but we also access by the land as well. So the northeast cities of Thailand will be also popular for driving market, like car driving kind of overland travel. So that will be the opportunities not only for the major destination, for also the second tier market.
Thank you. We're basically out of time, and I know that we need to wrap up. But Daniela, I wanted to ask you another question about kind of the balance between culture and nature tourism, because I know both are very important to Switzerland. And the question is about, because of the focus on nature tourism and the popularity of that post-pandemic, do you think that destinations need to kind of switch their marketing to focus less on culture and adapt to that interest in nature?
I think that's a very good question, but I don't think so, because Switzerland especially is a very small country. It's very well connected, so you can do actually all of it within a very short time. So we Swiss people travel like that, and I think that is the key. More and more, especially younger Chinese travelers, they want to travel like the locals. They want to experience the country more authentically. They don't want to only go to the kind of the bucket list places. And you can do both, right? You can see the Matterhorn, you can see the Jungfrau region, you can see the Chapel Bridge in Lucerne, which are fantastic places to go. And you can combine it with a trip to the side valleys, with a trip to the museums in these cities. So I think the combination is wonderful, and it's all about, for us, we always say in terms of sustainability as well, stay longer and dive deeper and experience the local culture more authentically. And I think this applies for all of our 3 destinations perfectly.
Thank you. I would also say, just based on Dragon Trail's consumer research as well, that we do see that people are very interested in nature, very interested in beach and sea destinations, but also still very interested in visiting cultural icons and architectural icons and those kind of must-see sites. And we've seen that in Dragon Trail's research. We've also seen that in research that has come out from the Chinese website Chongya, which focuses on young independent travelers. So I think maybe my perspective is that the new interest, or kind of increased interest in nature tourism from the 3 years of the pandemic, is not to the detriment of cultural destinations, but it's rather in addition to it. It's another thing that countries can market. So thank you so much to the 3 of you. I think you've brought just so much knowledge and experience, and really look forward to seeing what 2023 and the future brings for the development of Chinese tourism and tourism marketing to all of your destinations.
Well, thank you so much, Sienna, and to Dragon Trail for organizing this. Always a pleasure.